What is up, my people? I'm Nicole, and yeah, I guess some people watching this might actually not know who I am, but if you do know me on social media, you know I am a front-end web developer. I am really active in the community as well. I do a lot of work with new coders. I am a self-taught coder. There's a whole bunch. I'll probably go into more about it later, but today, I wanted to kind of do some things. I've been sitting on it like, oh, I have to do all this preparation and stuff, or, give all this prefacing. But in reality, that's kind of been keeping some really important stuff that I've had to say from you guys, which isn't fair because I've been learning a lot, and I think that what I'm learning could actually really help other people. So, what I'm starting to do today on also, if you know, on social media, like Wednesdays, every Wednesday is my therapy day. And I look forward to it like all week. It's a good day. Like, I don't know. Somebody once said, like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, for what? Like, this is a great thing for me to be doing. But in order to try and kind of alleviate the stigma too, I figured it would be really helpful to actually share some of what I'm learning. Like I said, each week in therapy, because I'm doing stuff that applies to my life, but I know that there are a lot of other people who will probably really find this stuff useful too. Even just by sharing the little bits that I've shared already, God, the feedback I've gotten has been nuts. So it's really helping people. So this little segment I'm going to be doing, it'll probably be part of a bigger thing. As you can see, I've started a new YouTube channel called High Functioning. That is going to be kind of a whole thing in and of itself. But again, wanted to start with this stuff to make sure that you guys are getting what you deserve and what you need. So yeah, this segment for like the third time is going to be called Secondhand Therapy. And there are so many people I kind of take therapy for granted because I've been doing it for years now, every single week. And it's just become a part of my weekly flow now, and I love it. I think I've grown so much as a result. But there are so many folks out there that aren't doing therapy, or that even just have like these preconceived notions about what therapy looks like, and so they're not actually taking advantage of it. So I thought about doing this a while ago, but I was definitely more in like a place of feeling ashamed about all this stuff. So now that I'm starting to defeat a lot of that, I think that we can probably have a lot of fun here talking about mental illness, because I'm an open book about it. If you've read any of my stuff, you know. But yeah, so this is officially my first secondhand therapy. It'll probably just get weirder from here, but one of the things that I wanted to cover today is kind of an introduction. So in therapy, for the most part, the first thing that you do when you get into it, and then you keep doing it on an ongoing basis, if your therapy place is any good, is to create what's called a treatment plan. And the treatment plan is created in order to give you some goals. Because like you go in there and it's super unstructured, like they're asking you questions, you kind of got to build up a relationship when you first start. I haven't seen my therapist for so long. I pretty much lead my own, therapy sessions. But we want to have things to like focus on, to talk about, so that I can actually see when I'm getting improvement. So this treatment plan that we put together is by no means the first one, but it's really funny because it's changed over time, as it's supposed to, as I'm learning more stuff and as I'm blasting through my goals and finding kind of new ones. So this treatment plan is pretty cool. It's completely my shit. Like, nobody else gave you this. They just basically ask you questions like, what do you think are kind of the core issues that you're dealing with right now? And, what do you want to work on? And what do you want to see as an end result? Even those questions can be kind of challenging to answer yourself, especially if you're not even sure. But I've gotten a lot better sense of what I'm looking for in terms of tackling some of my chronic mental illness and the challenges that it gives me. But yeah, we'll talk about that too, because I am a warrior, not this episode, but I'm a warrior when it comes to at least trying my hardest every day to overcome this shit. So yeah, my treatment plan for this week included some stuff, and I'm not going to cover this all in this one episode. But so we got this section called problems / goals / objectives. I don't know. It's somewhere on there. But the first problem that's listed out here is attention deficit disorder, adult. I don't think they're in any particular order, but that was one of the first that we talked about. So underneath that too, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Definitely childhood PTSD I've dealt with. And I talk about that stuff with my therapist. It's going to be different with everybody, but that's one section of problems that I have. And then we dug into that, and we're talking about goals at that point. Like, what do I want to see in the future in like a perfect world? How would this be a part of my life, if it even would be a part of my life anymore? And the tricky part with that is that chronic illness is pretty much always going to be a part of your life. So, but my first goal under the ADD and PTSD is to improve ability to focus, sustain concentration, and implement strategies to improve initiation. I really focused in on that initiation part really intentionally. And I might as well just, I don't have any actual format for this yet, and it probably won't really have too much of one anyway, but effectively, I have a lot of problems with just getting started with something. And that's probably, like, this is why I want to do this. That is probably something a lot of people can relate to. But for me, it pisses me off because I have way too many things to do for that to be the case. And I struggled my entire life with focus issues and with issues of like initiation. The PTSD part in there touches in where I am facing a lot of anxiety and fear in even getting started with something because I have PTSD from school where I was terrified that if I got something wrong or if I didn't do a good enough job, you're getting graded on it. So like when I talk about it, like academic trauma, that's why this is so important. Like it affects you later on in life when you're sitting there like, oh, I need to get this started. Why can't I? And like you're still kind of thinking to yourself that someone's grading you out there. And as an entrepreneur myself, I put myself out there. My work is an extension of me. And so when I think about creating stuff or starting something that I need to do, I'm really thinking in terms of like, oh, are people going to like me? Are they going to like my product? But also, and is it going to be accurate? Do I know enough? But also like, are they going to like me? And so having that issue of the PTSD fueling that it gets you into a lifelong cycle of that. Like shit that happens when you're a kid absolutely affects you as an adult. It's nuts. That is why I'm in therapy today, really. Some of us have really fucked up childhoods. And if you're still struggling with a lot of that, or if you haven't even connected the dots, that your younger self issues are leading to some of your adulthood issues, then, or the root cause of it, then you might not even think you need therapy because it seems like it's completely detached, right? But no, childhood shit and adult shit, they're one and the same. If you never clean up your mess, it's not just going to clean itself up. So it makes sense, right? So that's kind of where the PTSD ties into all this. The ADD for me, I still think, I was talking about this with my therapist today, and we still think that might be a part of the autism spectrum disorders. Sorry, my cat is just like pawing at my toe. Like a lot of folks on the spectrum have focus issues with anything that isn't like completely like consuming to them. So like my special interests, it's tough because now it's starting to get affected by just my thinking about whether or not I can present this content, in a good enough format. So when you have all that stuff that you're thinking about, like that is what you're considering before you even get something started. And then while you're working on it, just there's so much going on, especially being spectrum, like you're perceiving everything all at once. So it gets really exhausting. It's hard to focus. That's been an issue for my entire life. So again, this stuff is chronic. It doesn't it doesn't go away. You just find ways to kind of cope with it. So I'm like going all over the place with this, but it's important shit. So that goal was to improve my ability to focus effectively. And my objective so like the steps that I'm going to take in order to meet that goal, excuse me. Objective 1 is to implement daily 2 plus. So like, I guess she meant by that like 2 plus different reframes. She worded this really strangely. Implement daily 2 plus reframe of how client perceives the task to overcome fear and anxiety when attempts to initiate. Okay, so effectively it's just putting into practice a couple of strategies to keep myself like on a daily basis to build a habit out of it so that I can actually start to actively tackle that fear and the anxiety of like not being perfect, of not doing it right, you know, of showing my ass somehow. Like, I don't know. Again, that school stuff really, it does not help with the whole approach there. It does not help at all. So I'm going to try to put in 2 of those, and that's why she said 2 plus. I'm a perfectionist. I'm going to put in way more overachiever. So I haven't decided what those 2 are going to be yet, but I do know that it has to directly combat my ability to, or combat my issue with like starting something and thinking too much about it. Like, oh man, I'm not going to do well enough at this. It's not something I'm really going to enjoy. I am like not really. Okay, sorry, I had to let the cat out of the room. But yeah, so that's pretty much my first goal. And I don't know exactly what those 2 strategies are going to look like though, but the end result has to be that I do it. You know, like if I'm not doing it after all that, it's not an effective strategy, right? So I'm thinking, I've always been one that kind of tests things and tweaks things. I'm very much like a hypothesis oriented person. I'm always considering little brain hacks because my brain is whack. Like it does its own thing. And I figured out years ago that I cannot attempt to tame this Bronco. I just have to put a saddle on it and ride it out. Like some of my brain's weird attributes are actually conducive to like really amazing things that I can create. But like if I fight it, it's only going to end up worse and I'm going to end up stressed out. So the hacks that I've kind of implemented, like this is my entire career. What I do now is just sharing with people kind of what I've learned, what works, what doesn't. The Pomodoro technique has definitely worked well for me in terms of initiation because as soon as I click that button to start the Pomodoro round or whatever the interval, I am going to dive in. That first touching it, I just posted a picture or a video of my cat Paul and what I call the biscuit blanket. So like I put this fleece blanket in front of her and as soon as she touches it, she just goes in and starts making biscuits, what I call it, but like kneading on it. And it's so funny to watch. But on top of that, it just reminds me if I can just touch something, there's a very good chance that I'll continue with it and maybe even see it to completion. But there are some other things, some other challenges, which I'm going to talk about in a second, that kick in at that point, even after I can just get it started, which is half the battle. But then the other half is something else I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, that's basically it, is implementing those 2 strategies minimum. I say 2, but it's probably going to be a lot more. And I'm going to be working through a lot of stuff. I'll try and share it because honestly, stuff that doesn't work for me might work for somebody else. Something that works for me might also work for someone else, but it's going to be a your mileage may vary type thing because our brains aren't the same. Like neuroatypicality has taught me that one thing. I cannot assume that everybody's brain works the same as mine. So, which is a good thing, but it makes it a lot harder for me to hear advice from people and have to like whittle it down to what works or like tweak it, modify it. So it's a lot of work. You can see why, you know, like I'm so exhausted. We call each other like spoonies, you know, the spoon theory thing. And it's so real because like everyone else is dealing with their own shit. This is kind of an aside, a frustrated aside. Everyone else is dealing with their own shit, you know, and they're getting things done. And there's so many of us over here just like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, I can't even get this started and let alone be able to sustain the effort on it. Like, that was one of the reasons I couldn't hold a job. Like, I'm on disability insurance. And that's one of the reasons why. Companies don't like it when your brain is constantly getting in the way and you can't do jack shit about it. Or if you are, it takes time. It takes therapy. Like, fancier version of therapy, I guess. Like Tarjay. Make it sound classier. But yeah, that's So it's under the problem of ADD, which, I mean, it's kind of touching on everything. But when they create these, they have to like select drop downs and stuff. So the second problem that I'm facing here that I want to work on in therapy is financial stress. Now, those of you that know me on social media know that I have been posting a lot about this because it is such a prevailing problem, number one, that has so much shame attached to it, and which I'm even trying to defeat right now. Like, the shame is major. It affects your sense of self-worth when you can't make money. Being on disability, I'm on fixed income. You know, I make $1,100 a month. I do my best to try and make more than that, and, you know, but without having that consistent effort based on having my brain feeling consistent, you see where this is kind of a bigger picture here. If I can overcome these smaller parts, then there's a definite good chance that I can overcome the major things and crawl out of this disability hole, you know? And I'm fully aware too, there are some people that just can't do that. You know, like, I would never, ever go to somebody who was disabled or limited in their abilities and suggest that any of my strategies could work for them unless they were to say that themselves. Like, if that spoke to them or something, because not everybody can do this. Not everybody can, and I recognize that. You know, I've always kind of punched above my weight and I exhaust myself. I end up in therapy, but this is what I do every day. So this financial stress issue is a thing for me. It's a big old thing. And it's under a diagnosis that I have of bipolar 2 disorder. You can see how these things are kind of like loosely connected, but not quite the way that they tier them. So like the ADD is tied to post-traumatic stress disorder. The bipolar 2 is tied to financial stress because that up and down, even medication is not a cure-all. That up and down affects your ability to sustain work. You know, so a lot of folks that don't know much about mental illness or about bipolar 2 disorder, that is the connection. You know, if you ever looked at somebody with bipolar and thought, you look fine, why the fuck can't you work? Like, that's why. Would you hire me if you knew that, like, in week 2 of starting there, I was going to burn out and not even be able to get up in the morning? And then you just sit there and whip me some more until I break, and then you have to fire me? Like, that cycle keeps going over and over again. And at some point, I had to be like, man, I can't do this on my own anymore. Like, I just need to be able to survive, but apparently I can't do that. So all of that brings you to financial stress. I live definitely paycheck to paycheck, and it's not even paycheck that I feel like I earn. I'm starting to build up my little babypreneurship, but one thing that I recognize that money makes money. You know, like, if I had a lot of help and I could afford help, like a lot of folks do that are starting their own businesses, I would have been there by now, you know, but instead having to work with my energy levels and the lack of money has just kept me in this cycle on the ground. And I'm starting to break free from it, but it requires so much energy, guys, so much energy. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to burn out, like, right now. I've been kind of pushing that down a bit, but at the end of the day, once you burn out, it's hard to come back from. So I have to be honest with myself right now and tell myself, hey, this financial stress might be causing me a lot more problems in the long-term scope of my life. You know, I need to figure out something to do now. But tied to the bipolar 2 disorder, my goal under this one is to gain a new sense of self-worth in which the substance of one's value is not attached to the capacity to do things or own things that cost money. Again, repeat that. My goal is to gain a new sense of self-worth in which the substance of one's value is not attached to the capacity to do things or own things of value. So, or own things that cost money, rather. So this is a huge, McLarge, huge one for me. Guys, when you're broke for like your entire life, how do you think you're going to feel? You think you're going to feel like, oh, I can make money left and right. Like, no, you start looking around at people with shit that they probably earned, you know, whatever. Some of them obviously haven't. But even the people who have worked really hard to earn it, like, I would love to have the energy and the focus and the sustained okayness to be able to be where they are. But once you start comparing yourself to those people, you start to develop this really strong sense that you don't deserve good things, that you don't deserve to make money, that you don't deserve to be happy. And that weighs on you really hard. It affects everything. It affects the way that you think about money. It affects the way that you feel about people that have money. It affects the way that you feel about people who don't have money. My empathy is huge for people who are struggling right now, because I know it's not going to be forever for me, and that's why I'm in therapy. I'm hoping that I can build these skills to be able to kind of crawl out of this hole on my own and then help other people kind of out as well. But I quickly learned that I definitely have to get myself out of that hole first. But then sharing stuff like this with you guys hopefully will help you too. But yeah, that was powerful. Like a sense of self-worth that is not tied to my capacity to work or create or do or own things that cost money. Like, isn't that the entire fucking center of like capitalism? Yeah. So we're living in this country, in this world that is really trying to make me feel, it's designed to make us feel like we're less than. And that's just reality. It isn't necessarily the like reality that we are, it's not reality that we are less than, but the reality is that there is an actual structure out there that is designed to make certain people succeed and other people fail. Even if they on their own probably wouldn't. Like if I had grants and stuff like that because people had empathy toward disabled folks, I probably would have been able to start my business by now. You know, I would have had the startup, but the world is not designed for people who are dealing with chronic illness. So, you know, or chronic mental illness. So we've got to work that many times harder. But that is going to be a big goal for me. And I do have some steps here that I'm going to take toward it too. But that's going to be a huge goal for me because right now I'm in the middle of this. Like it took me so much courage and bravery to be able to speak up and finally be like, hey guys, listen, I need help. Like I am unable to do this on my own. I am trying. I'm spinning out. I'm like frustrated. I'm burning out. If I keep doing it this way, I'm going to lose my passion for tech because I'm too closely associating it with pain. You know, looking around constantly and seeing an expectation of six figures. Looking around and seeing people who are building projects and doing this and feeling that really, really deep set imposter syndrome. Because I'm just not able to do it that way. But we have a system in place in this world that tells us that if you can't do it that way, then you ain't gonna make it. And if you were to ask some of these real head asses out there on the internet, they're gonna tell you it's survival of the fittest, baby. Well, let me tell you. Let's talk about fit. I'll take my earrings off for this one. Where's my Vaseline? I will fight you if you think for a second that I am not fit for this. I will fight you because I am. There's no question about it. But like I said, this entire world around me is not built to support me. And it's really interesting too because, I mean, on my maternal side, I'm Native American and African American. And my Native American tribe, Pokanoket Wampanoag, is, I was just having this discussion actually a couple of weeks ago. There isn't really a concept of disabled, you know, or less than in what I've heard is most tribes, you know, like it's somebody who needs maybe an additional support, and that's how it's seen, as opposed to, oh, they're not able to do this, so they're going to get left behind. They're going to fall out, like, of the gene pool. Because honestly, if you can't manage yourself, you're not going to stay in the gene pool. I'm not trying to have any kids when I'm still a kid. Holy shit. So, I mean, if we had a better support system for people like me, then I would be a completely different person and the world would be a completely different place. That was really seeing more of my gifts because I wasn't so stressed out all the time about just fucking existing. So, if I knew this were church, I would have put pants on. But, so that, God, there's like 3 pages. No, it's only 2 pages. But anyway, yeah, no, that's like it though, is same deal. My objective, my step toward meeting that goal of kind of detaching my sense of self-worth from the money and my financial situation is going to be really key for me this year. And I got to do that ASAP, because honestly, as an entrepreneur, you cannot have a scarcity mindset. You can't. If you think that there's not enough money in the world, you're never going to be able to get it. And I see that, like I see it, and I'm working really hard to rewire my shit. But that's why I'm going to therapy every week. And then every day I got to try and change my internal monologue to tell myself, listen, girl, yeah, you broke as fuck right now. Like, that's reality, right? We can change reality moving forward, but it's going to take some steps. Let's identify those steps, try some stuff, dismiss what doesn't work, and keep going, and then eventually I'll get there. I just saw that fucking video of the real live action tortoise and a rabbit in a race. It wasn't even that long, and like the rabbit went halfway, and I was just like, nah, fuck this. And then the tortoise, of course, just keeps going, and I'm like, man, I identify with that shit. You slow as fuck, but at the same time, like, it me. So you'll get there eventually. Like, that's the only way that I was even able to change careers, get a job, get to this point where I'm in front of y'all in a camera. Like, the podcast was a big deal for me, and this is still a big deal for me, being in front of a camera. I don't like it, but it gets easier with practice, I think. And I think that what you'll find is if you start going to therapy and building up these coping strategies to help you move forward, it just gets easier, over time. I see that, but it doesn't make it any easier just to say that. It's an everyday job. Apart from my everyday job of trying to bring you guys content and supporting the community and connecting with folks, self-taught developers, and having conversations, really tough conversations with the tech community, I got to deal with all this shit. So when I say I'm like a superhero, that's it. Like, yeah, anyway, that's going to be entirely different conversations, but that's that financial stress bullshit. And I'm hoping I can overcome that soon, because I'm pretty sure that's why I feel like I'm like nose against the wall with success right now. I've given so much back to the community. I have people telling me, like, let us support you. Well, as soon as I can get my head straight enough to overcome these issues of self-worth, to overcome, the stress, it's a cycle. The financial stress gets in the way, creates anxiety, gets in the way of you actually creating things. Then because you can't create things and get them out to people, you gain more stress, financial stress, and it just keeps going. And we get stuck like that. And I'm tired. I don't want to be stuck anymore. And I like to help y'all get unstuck too, if I can help it. That's why I'm here sharing. Interventions and activities. Intervention, huh? So the intervention one, basically the therapist role is the way, it's not as serious as it sounds, is to explore the client's assessment of herself and what is verbalized as the basis for negative self-perception. Like, in other words, she's trying to figure out why the fuck I hate myself so much. And I'm trying to figure it out too. So we're working there together to be able to to actually pull it apart and see it might be a dialectical behavior, DBT issue, where we kind of bring in a little bit more about okay, what are you telling yourself? Can we change that? And the answer is yes, you can change it. I'll be doing some more topics about that. But yeah, you can change it, and she's going to help me by being aware of the fact that that is actually an issue I want to change. Intervention 2 is to probe the client's feelings of self-concept that are associated with the financial crisis. Probe the client's feelings of hopelessness or helplessness that may be associated with it. Hopeless and helpless are definitely two words that I could attach to this whole situation. It's tough. You just got to have faith that there's something better in the works. Like, I don't know what else to say. If I give up, I'm fucked. So, like, even if it's not actually concretely there, I've got to believe that, person in tech over here is not any better than me. They're just doing something a little bit differently, and their brain's different. Like, I can definitely get out of this position, and I can definitely alleviate those feelings of hopelessness and helplessness by continuing to focus. You see where everything's interrelated here. So the focus and the PTSD, if I get past that, I can initiate my tasks more easily. And then when I initiate the task more easily, then I can manage to get things done and see the results of getting things done, which in this case might equate to money to help the financial situation. So in reality, guys, therapy is just one big web of shit. I started out with anxiety. I started out with depression as I got depression as a diagnosis. And then it just kept going out, branching out. What caused this? Because in reality, depression was the manifestation, the symptom, right? It's what you see. And even then, depression causes problems. So then depression's a root cause of that. But what's the root cause of the depression? And that's how we discovered the bipolar 2, the anxiety. And then what caused the anxiety? Well, there was autism spectrum. So, and it's a whole lot of shit at once. So if you want to tackle all of it, you got to find root cause. You have to, I'm excellent at pattern recognition, because you have to identify the patterns and figure out, if I can attack this, how many of these issues am I going to cut off? Like how many things, other things are going to affect? And the answer is usually a lot. So if you tackle one issue, you're going to see alleviated symptoms with the others. And it's worth the work. It definitely is. Intervention 3, last thing on here, is to teach the client, me, relaxation skills to reduce anxiety and worry due to perfectionist tendencies. Perfectionism is going to be a topic all in and of itself. Excuse me. I can tell you this right now. I don't like to identify as a perfectionist. If nothing else, I say that I'm a recovering perfectionist. But the way that society uses perfectionism is totally different from the reality of perfectionism. Perfectionism as a problem will fuck your life up. It will fuck your shit up so hard, and you'll be sat there like, what the fuck did I do wrong? Like, why is nothing getting done? Why do I always feel like this isn't, like I'm not doing this right? And in reality, you could be doing it right if you just did it and learned from it. It'll never be perfect. I started that shit early on. It was really connected pretty closely to some childhood trauma, where I had to keep everything together in my dysfunctional household, and that included the grades. I had to keep everything bad at home under wraps, and if I was getting good grades, nobody would think there was anything wrong, right? So from that, I started to think, okay, overachiever mode, and I burned out early. I got migraines and shit. Perfectionism is a beast. It will destroy your life. It'll destroy your career. So please don't think when you say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, that's what it means. If you can still manage to get shit done, regardless of your feelings about how good it should be, then you're not dealing with the real brunt of perfectionism. Because it is the number one thing that keeps me from seeing a project to completion. Even after I initiate, I do that biscuit blanket thing, I get into it, then a different issue kicks in, and it's where to stop, how far to go. And I got some thoughts on that too, which again, I'm going to do for another episode, but I don't know. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm going to post it just raw form, and I really hope it helps somebody. I really hope it helps somebody out there, because it's weird to go through this on your own. You do therapy solo, and your therapist is kind of your best friend, but I feel like I'm always learning so much that I could be sharing with other people so that they can grow along with me, right? And it can only help to make the industry a better place too. So hopefully I'll get to bring some of you along on my recovery journey, and I'll see some good results. If nothing else, this is a good start. Shout out mental illness. Shout out mental illness. Like, seriously, if you get a mental illness, turn the fuck up. This shit is not, let's destroy the stigma. Like, ruin that, because they ruined our lives for us, the people in this world that have put us into boxes and shit. They don't see the work that we have to do. They don't see how much effort goes into every day that we exist. So let's remind them, and hopefully this is one step in that direction. All right, guys, love ya.